Good day, everybody. I'm Shmi, and I make guides for Path of Exile's Ruthless mode. If you're enjoying the content, please hit that like button, and feel free to subscribe if you'd like to see more. Today, I'm back to talk about the Ruthless Atlas. You see, I've spent most of the last 2 months doing nothing but testing different mechanics in the Atlas and seeing their benefit. I'm going to be making 3 videos. Today, I'm going to talk about the relative value of the master mechanics. Tomorrow, in part 2, I'm going to be talking about the 10 different league mechanics, and I'll be posting part 3, the Ruthless Atlas strategy guide, once the patch notes for Affliction League have dropped. Before I start talking about the masters, I want to point out 2 specific things about these tier lists that I'm making. First, in Ruthless, the one and only way to get Abyss Jewels is through Abyss encounters. The one and only way to get fossils and resonators is through Delve. The one and only way to get cluster jewels is by breaking a delirium mirror. When I rank the mechanics and masters, I'm not just ranking how powerful the unique league rewards are. I'm ranking how much of a total return on investment you get from investing into that mechanic in your Atlas. There's one league mechanic in particular that has a very powerful reward, but it is a bad mechanic to focus on in Ruthless. The second problem with making this tier list is that the next league, Affliction League, starts almost exactly 16 days from right now as of the posting of this video. It's likely that there are going to be changes. It's even possible that we could get an entirely new Atlas, or maybe the Affliction mechanic just blows everything else away and nothing but Affliction matters. Who knows? The following tier list reflects my experience with all the endgame mechanics throughout both Crucible and Ancestor League. Just note that this may change in a couple of weeks. After the Affliction patch notes drop, be ready for some, okay, never mind, I'm probably wrong now, when I get to part 3 of this video series. For the tier lists, I'm going to be splitting the mechanics into these 4 tiers. I'll explain why for each mechanic as I put it there. In general, F tier just means to avoid that mechanic entirely. C tier means the mechanic's okay, but it gets outclassed by something else. A tier means it's good, but definitely not mandatory, and S tier means it's so good that it's pretty much mandatory, and I'll also show you exactly what is mandatory. Okay, now let's go ahead and get started ranking the masters. That's Alva, Niko, Kirac, Einhar, and June. You may have seen me talk about incursion temples on this channel, and you can probably guess that Alva is sitting comfy in S tier. The Temple of Atzoatl is the best single source of loot in all of Ruthless. You get boosts to quantity and rarity, you can get further boosts by upgrading your incursion rooms, and you can customize those rooms for specific loot types, including map drops. No master or league mechanic can match the raw item drop power of Alva and Incursion League. Incursion is absolutely mandatory in Ruthless. The good news is that it doesn't require a whole lot of an investment. Investing more into Incursion is something that I would generally recommend, but all you need is the Perpetual Search and Time Dilation. Trying to do incursions without time dilation is a waste of time. In Ruthless, you're just too slow. And the Perpetual Search, it's really easy to get. It's right next to the start of your Atlas, and it really helps you stock up missions. Get the Perpetual Search early, then save up your Alva missions until you get Time Dilation, and then after you have Time Dilation, start running some temples and go wild looting the Temple of Atzoatl. Kirac is a bit of a different case than the other 4. He's not considered a master in the same way that the others are, but I felt the need to point out that Kirac is also solidly S tier. A Kirac mission unlocked at tier 1 can then lead to a tier 5 map unlock. That tier 5 map run can then give you tier 4 or 5 map drops, and you'll fill out your Atlas quickly while you fall down it. There's even a trick that you can pull with scouting reports that trivializes your late red map progress. I made a video explaining that. The link should be popping up now if you want to check that out. All Ruthless players should invest into at least Commissioned Officer and Expert Reconnaissance. Kirac missions and scouting reports are the best source of Atlas progress in Ruthless. I would also strongly recommend grabbing at least one, whichever one is closest, of the 2 Kirac clusters that are down in these bottom corners. They're all great in Ruthless, and in Ruthless, some investment into Kirac is mandatory. Okay, next up is Einhar. I love you, buddy, but in Ruthless, you are terrible. Enkindling orbs don't exist in Ruthless, and instead Einhar's beast crafting replaces them. Other than making your utility flasks automatically chug when they get full, Einhar just doesn't really do anything. There's some talisman recipes that are weird and maybe applicable in the campaign, but overall beast crafting is pretty terrible, and you'll get more than enough random Einhar missions with 0 Atlas investment. Until something big changes, Einhar is an F tier. There's something kind of funny about Niko and Delve. I'm gonna say that overall, Niko is A tier, but with a really big asterisk. Delve is A tier because early on in the endgame, it's a solid C, but by the time you push and hit red maps, Delve becomes a smoking hot S tier mechanic. The reason is fossils. The entire point of Delve is getting resonators and fossils, and thus being able to create your own customizable orbs of alchemy. But you don't really get fossils up until around Delve depth 50. Prior to that, there are far fewer of those fun, explorable side caverns. You don't have anywhere near as many flares or upgrades. You'll only get a small amount of azurite, and most of the items are pretty weak. Running delves before level 75 or so is very unrewarding and unfun. But once you crack through delve level 50 or so, you start seeing a significant increase in fossil nodes. When you explore those side caverns, they can have additional fossils. Breakable walls become far more common, and the increased rewards behind them. Even better is the sulfite. Red map Niko missions will give around 1,000 sulfite per vein, and I have nothing increasing my sulfite in my atlas. Looking back through my stash and seeing now just how many fossils and resonators that I've accumulated has me thinking that maybe in Affliction League, I'll be a Delve main. At the very start of the endgame, Delve is a disappointing C tier mechanic. But in yellow maps, it bumps up to A tier, and by red maps, it's S tier. All Ruthless players should invest into Mad Devotion at the very least to accumulate some Niko missions. You can hold off on this investment early on, but you'll want to get it sooner rather than later. The good news here is that the notable skill Sulfite Infusion is not mandatory. This is a tiny amount of sulfite compared to what you get from doing Niko missions. Even over the long run with accumulation, it's just not enough. Delve is great, but the only mandatory investment is Mad Devotion right here by the very start of your atlas. That leaves June and the Immortal Syndicate last. I recently did another set of Syndicate missions to see if it was different, and it's not. It's terrible. I did 4 missions for 2 scarabs. And even worse, despite the fact that they were yellow missions, one of the scarabs that I got was a rusted scarab. And in Ruthless, rusted scarabs can only be used on white maps. June is in the F tier. But there is one thing that I actually didn't test that could bump her up much higher. On the Atlas tree, there's a notable passive called Bribery. This gives an 800% increased item rarity to all drops by Immortal Syndicate members in your maps. If you were to invest into June and the Immortal Syndicate and take the Bribery notable, the rewards would be very small in number, but very high in quality. In fact, with 800% increased item rarity, Syndicate missions could even become a good source for farming unique items. With Bribery, she could bump it up into a higher tier, but I never had time to test and get any June missions, so I just don't know. If any of you love the betrayal mechanic, you are welcome to test it, and if anyone watching has tried betrayal with bribery, please let me know how it went in the comments. But until I can get confirmation that it's at least good, I would recommend that you avoid investing into June and betrayal. And there you have it. Kirac and Alva are leading the pack from day one. Niko is good, but he's a little slow to catch up. June is busy investigating in a deep search for one rusted torment scarab, and Einhar is off in the woods doing his own thing. Yeah, that seems about right. Coming up next, I'll be making a similar video regarding the 10 different league mechanics. If you like this video or you have any feedback, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and until next time, take care, Exiles.